Welcome to Polishing Marbles. I'm Audrey, and on today's podcast, I'm going to share with you my grief recovery trip to Mount Shasta with my daughter last week, where I experienced real life physical galactic interaction and learned about the power of the Om frequency from a beautiful feminine Arcturian being. I discussed the dismantling of systems within governments and how this is mirrored with our human body systems, as well as how you might detach from the old matrix to allow fluidity of change through a foundational sense of worthiness. I also discuss solar codes that are coming in hard right now and how the relay race of ascension is working with the new incoming awakened individuals. Lastly, I channel Osho, who shares some specific information about how we might receive these solar codes personally through plugging into the circuit between Gaia and the sun in order to relieve discomfort and align with the frequency of love. Thank you for tuning in today. I just wanted to add, during this time, it's easy to fall into a fear mindset and seek potential truth or guidance from as many sources as possible in order to soothe that fear. Just because someone can channel or claims to be a spiritual leader does not make it your truth. Your truth always lies within. Remember, you are your own guru. Look to your heart for your own truth, as love will always illuminate your path. Hello. I would like to welcome myself back to podcasting because it's been a wild ride. Naturally, today marks the month anniversary of my dad's passing, and it's been certainly a whirlwind of emotion and grief, just so much grief, because he was fully my favorite person besides my daughter. So, I have so much I'd like to share with you, and also the things that are coming in. I like to do a monthly energy update as far as like the things I'm reading are coming through my guides, Osho in particular, whomever is coming through and sharing things with me. And so this may be a little bit longer to catch up because I'm a week behind of the energy update. But every day feels like a month right now. So it feels like I'm not late. I am right on time. And I got back from Shasta several days ago. And there are things from that trip as well that I'd like to share. So this is going to be a dual thing. I have like channeled messages for you and also just general updates as far as the downloads that I've gotten, and upgrades, from everything that's happened this last month. And so, with that, I'm gonna get started. I have a list. I have a list. Um, I even have a drawing right here. I don't know how. It's not very good. Okay. So I'm going to be referring a little bit to after the passing of my dad, I wished to experience my grief fully and appropriately release and experience what is needed. Because I'm not about shoving things down, because when you shove things down, they will come back. So, and because I'm of service to humanity and because I'm of service to Gaia, I can't be knocked out for periods of time. Like I know that when I was like in my 20s, I could get knocked out by an experience emotionally and be out for barely functioning for months at a time, except to go to work and come back and pass out in my house crying, but I can't be derailed like that at this stage in my life. And I couldn't when I was, dealing with parenting my daughter at home and all that stuff. So I've grown to adapt in my spiritual practice to know what I need to just go full force into to experience what I need to experience. And here we go. So, um, I knew that I needed to sit with medicine, which I did. And it was a beautiful private ceremony, one-on-one ceremony that I got. And I still don't really have a lot of words for how profound and precious that experience was, but certainly during that ceremony, the mountain called to me Shasta because part of my consciousness really just lives on that mountain, and I've been to many mountains, but their consciousness doesn't like connect to me like family as Shasta does. And so when I was in ceremony and Shasta called, I was like, I'm going, I'm going, I'm going. It's like right now. I need to go right. Well, not during ceremony, but the 2 days later I went. 2 days later, I was like wrapping up all my loose ends, getting all, bills taken care of, not knowing when I'm coming back. Like I'm leaving. I'm calling my pet sitter. I'm like, can you just like spontaneously start coming by on this day? And they're like, yeah, sure, great. I'd love to see the loaf. My cat is referred to as a loaf because she is round. So I went to the mountain and it was beautiful because my daughter went with me. And the reason I'm sharing about the trip is how it pertains to you. Because my own private journey is my private journey and how it pertains to like a grid worker, another grid worker. Not all of you are grid workers or would identify as that, or maybe you don't even know what grid work is. But certainly on my website, I have a whole page on it if you want to know more about it, and lots of stuff on this YouTube channel and social media that explains grid work deeply. But I'm a grid worker, and so I had gone on this mass grid work journey over November, 4 grid work trips in 1 month I was called to do, which is just a lot. And it was beautiful and amazing, stressful, in the middle of which I injured myself. So then, like, traveling with an injury, super fun. It really makes you mindful. Um, but I learned as I was doing this that the places I was going to were representing earth, air, fire, and water. And I hadn't really done the spirit piece yet. Well, I learned that Shasta was the spirit piece to wrap it up because as my dad was in his portal to release from this realm, I had put crystals around the room he was in. Um, and then one in the middle underneath his bed where he was, laying. And those crystals that were around him in the room, I put, I took those and I gridded them all over Shasta. And the one that was underneath him, I'm going to grid at his gravesite, actually, with a Shasta rock as well. So it's all being brought together, earth, air, fire, water, and spirit. But the significance of that was the energy around the love and of the ascension process. And so that was happening. And I knew, and my daughter has watched me grid before. She's not like this. Like I I wouldn't say normal 19-year-old because she's like neurodiverse like me. So she's got niches and interests that are not like everybody else, but she for a long time just tolerated my my uniqueness, and now she witnesses it and with respect, and occasionally will chime in some incredible insights, and she's on her road too, so it's beautiful. But we were in Shasta and she had never been there before, so it was really exciting for me to um offer her like my favorite thing. Like, hey, look at my favorite thing. It's like sitting with someone who you're gonna watch your favorite movie with them for the first time. So you're like looking at them and do you like my movie that I love? And she really enjoyed it, Fairy Falls in particular, because it is magical and moss and fairies are everywhere. And we did some snowshoeing, and there was definitely energy. It gave her a headache because it's the root chakra of the planet. She had a headache throughout most of it, and we were staying. Our Airbnb was at the base of the mountain between Shasta and Black Butte, which I climbed in August. I climbed the whole mountain by myself, and I did run into a rattlesnake. And she kept on looking at it throughout the trip, going, "How the fuck did you climb that, Mom?" And I'm like, I don't know. I just did. I had to heal the Nephilim. And that was a whole thing too. So, she had a hard time adapting to the energy, but every night we went up to as far as we could go up on the mountain before it's like shut down because of the snow. It's called Bunny Flat. And in Bunny Flat, um, there's a nice like it's a flat. So it's an area where you can kind of see where it's not like just all dense trees. And so typically you could go, if it was not snowy, you could go in and just lay in the flat and look at the sky. And it was freezing, of course, and snowy. So we drive up the mountain every night and we would just stargaze in my car because I have a sunroof or a moonroof, and we had blankets and we'd turn out off the car and all the lights and we would just look at the vastness of the sky. And she's taking an astronomy class this semester, and she like it just start her semester just started, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, the stars are so amazing." And of course, we saw movement, and she's like, "Is seriously that's what's happening?" And I'm like, "Yeah, this is a big hub for space activity." But the reason I'm bringing this up is because of the plasma. So, as some of you listened to my previous podcast, when I was in Chicago in November, gridding. It was my last grid work trip of that four. I was in bed when I was engulfed with this plasma for about 45 minutes. It looked like blue hairs of moving stuff. Like it was alive, and it was all around me, and I could play with it with my hands, and I was fully awake and fully sober and in the dark in the bedroom I was staying in. And I had never had an experience like that before. And I remember mentioning on the podcast titled Plasma is from last month, I think, goes into the details of that. I remember saying, I've never had an experience like that. I don't know if I'm ever going to have an experience like that again. Well, universe says hold my beer because I'm at Shasta with my daughter and I'm in a car with her looking at the sky. Well, there have been a lot of chemtrails that particular day, so there were no stars. We couldn't see any stars, but I wanted to say goodnight to the mountain because we were leaving the next morning. So we had driven up the mountain 20 minutes to this flat where we see nothing. And she's like, "Oh, there's nothing." So we're listening to music. Um, but in the total blackness of that, and we were in total blackness, there was no light anywhere. I was able to start seeing things. And it was a lot like when I went into Pluto's cave for the first time, deep inside, turned off my lights with a group of people, and we meditated. And I realized when I open my eyes, I see the same thing as when I close my eyes. And I always see lights and movement and stuff. But this was different because my eyes were open and I was looking out at the blackness of the flat, and I started seeing geometry everywhere, like almost a matrices kind of geometry within the blackness. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. Like, I mean, we are on the root chakra of the planet. I'm not surprised. And I asked Charlotte if she sees anything. She doesn't because she's a different frequency than I am because of her age and where she's at and all this stuff. So while we're in the same car, we're having completely different experiences. Again, totally sober. And I start seeing something I first started to witness in my third eye in the fall of 2022. I was at a little tiny cabin on the Snake River in Idaho, and I was meditating. And this was back when I was being activated, and so I would record myself meditating, and half my face went limp when I was meditating. I'm like, am I having a stroke? But during that time, I started seeing like alveoli or something that you'd see in the deep ocean that's moving like this, cilia, like on your lungs or whatever. I started seeing that like in my face moving toward me. And I started to see that in the blackness. And it was like I was being brought into it, like I was being surrounded with it. And I was like, Charlotte, do you see that? She's still like, no. What are you talking about? And it's like engulfing me. And I'm trying to like remain calm because the first thing that happens when you experience an intergalactic kind of contact is that if you feel fear, it will dissipate because they don't want you to feel afraid. And I know that a lot of my galactic family is out there. So I was like, I'm not unsafe, but it is disorienting to be in the total blackness, being engulfed by like cilia or alveoli or whatever. And I may be even saying the wrong word. Anyway, and so I'm trying to like calm my nervous system and I'm breathing. And then I'm like, I'm okay. I'm open to contact. This is great. This is fine. I'm saying the love frequency. All is well. And then suddenly everything around me turned to the texture of water, including the car, my dash, everything was turning to water. Like it was waving. I was not solid, not solid. As far as I could see into the blackness that was eternal, it appeared. And on the sides of me, my car itself, I was in movement of immaterial plasma. I was part of that. So the only thing I can think is that I was in an orb, but my daughter wasn't sensing it. So I was inside this moving plasma, and while I was in it, I also was able to see a being in my third eye who is blue, dark blue, and it was a feminine being, and she was Arcturian for sure, and she had a sapphire stone on her third eye, and that sapphire stone had an Om symbol on it, and she was communicating with me telepathically that listening to the Om will tune my body to allow for the adjustment of what's happening right now in my system and in the world, will bring it back to a center point and tune me with what I needed tuning because from all the grief and the sadness and the energy in my body has been in a lot of physical discomfort, and she was letting me know this will help you. This will help you. And so I was like, okay, received, and thank you. And there was a point where I just got very overstimulated by being inside of an orb of plasma, and Charlotte was quiet, and I was just like, okay, Charlotte, let's go down the mountain. Thank you for the gifts that you gave me. And we drove down the mountain. And there were a lot of things that happened at Shasta aside from that, but I wanted to share that in part because plasma is part of this ascension experience for many star seeds. And it's also part of contact, and it's also something that's new to me emotionally and physically. And I wanted to share it in part to normalize that experience as normal as it can be, and also let you know that you're not alone. If that's something you experience, you're not insane. You're just not insane. It's so interesting that I experienced it with my daughter beside me, and she didn't see or experience those things. But I immediately got that it was dimensional, and she's just not at that dimension right now, and she doesn't really want to be. So that worked out great. Um, so plasma, keep that in mind. That is something that may be coming into your realm, which honestly, I would say is a theme that is happening right now, is the plasma. Um, The second part is, have you noticed the world's on fire? Certainly you have, especially if you live in the United States. And I know that quite a few people that I have relationships with through this are from all over the world. And I would be very interested in what you're hearing about America right now, frankly, because it is interesting. I remember this over the summer. One of my friends who does not live in this country, I kept on saying, like, I'm waiting for the shoe to drop. I just want the shoe to drop because this waiting is driving me crazy of knowing something's building, as my whole left side gets chills. it's just building and building, and I'm like so tired of waiting for it. I'm so tired of preparing for it. I'm so tired of just like I'm doing all the work, and I am serving all these people and the earth, and I just don't know what's happening. Like, when is it going to happen? And it feels like it's happening. It's happening very quickly in the United States, and I think a lot of people, most spiritual people I know, realize that there's that like the theme word right now is dismantling, and so we're experiencing this dismantling in real time, and we know that it's necessary, and so we're like, yeah, it's cool, it's necessary. It's off-putting and confusing, but it's necessary. But there are some people in the spiritual community who are like still connected to the matrix of good and bad. And so they are feeling really uh what would the word be? There, I don't want to speak for people, but as a witness, I've got cat hair on my nose. That's why I'm not like doing cocaine. I've got cat hair on my nose. Um, they feel like they're wobbling to me. I talked about wobbling in terms of like after my dad died, coming into like this wobbly state where I'm not grounded, and I'm feeling more and more grounded now. But I'm seeing that some spiritual people are wobbling a little bit because they're feeling like where we're at can't possibly be part of the ascension. And that's okay, that they're still attached to the concepts of what are good and bad based off of what we're seeing. Because I don't engage in politics because it's all gross. However, I will say that the law of correspondence is coming in hot right now to discuss this particular topic. So what I was getting the other day, I was walking. So a lot of this is from Osho, just not channeling him directly in front of you right now, but all of this came from Osho this week. Um, he was saying that we're dealing right now with what's very similar to, and he showed me an Afghan. So like if you were to be crocheting, and I have this extraordinary Afghan that I started crocheting when my both my parents started really falling apart in May of 2021. And I had to like sell the estate and get them in a facility and deal with all the medical and lawyers, and I was a disaster, and I was crocheting every night watching Boy Meets World with my daughter to just kind of survive. And every skein of yarn I used one that reminded me of my dad and one that reminded me of my mom, and I did it like back and forth. So I have like a camouflaged one, and I have one that is like bright pink for my mom, and it went back and forth. It's huge. It's huge. And I used it in my medicine journey to like bundle myself up. And it's so beautiful what comes through about our world. And in ancient tribes, they used to talk about the weaver. I got chills again. The weaver and the grandmother weaver, the grandmother spider. And we're really weaving our own realities with our thoughts and our awareness. And what I see, what I saw during medicine, and what Osho shared with me was that we could be weaving a future, like crocheting. And I could crochet this particular stitch my mom taught me when I was little of this Afghan that I made that my dad had on him when he was dying. I could do it distracted. I could watch Boy Meets World, and we watched Girl Meets World too right after it, which was the reboot later in the 2010s. And I would crochet, and I didn't even have to pay attention, but sometimes I'd miss a stitch, or there'd be like a noted fuck up. And I'd be like, oh, damn it. I have to go back and I have to unravel everything and fix that stitch or accept the stitch is broken. But like everything after that's going to be off, basically, right? So what I'm seeing right now is a really long time ago, a stitch changed everything. an event, and I believe it was, Atlantis, that stitch changed the whole pattern. So the whole pattern from that moment on was distorted. And so what do? If the pattern has been destroyed, you accept that you could throw the blanket away, frankly. You could be like, that's too much work. And I think those are what cataclysms are, basically, is like, I don't think I can fix this. Let's start over. Etch a sketch, shake it. But that's not what we're doing this time. We're in an ascension process, and so we right now, and all the grid workers, we are fixing the stitches. We're going around and we're fixing all the stitches energetically. We're weaving them back into new realities, and we're anchoring light, and we're radiating light, and we're coming together as these new molecules of beautiful different DNA patterns, and we're creating communities, and there's beautiful things that are happening. But look at the systems that are in place in our world that have had really bad stitches make these bad patterns, and the patterns are jiggered. They're bad. They're just not good. And we could destroy all of them. We could completely destroy them, or we can go in and we can like unravel all the stitches and fix the pattern. And so that's what I see is happening right now. It's unraveling all the stitches where we went off track. And it looks like a lot of destruction. Like when I have like fixed stitches and I'm pulling at this yarn, it's like a pile of this kinked yarn that could be tangled and confusing. Like, oh, now I have to weave it all back, and it's just so much work. And oh my God, and I have to pay attention. And that's really where we're at right now collectively. And I mean, around the world, every system. And months ago, was it months ago? Yeah, it was about 3 or 4 months ago. I had channeled from Osho that we're dealing with basically our world holds systems of body, the body that we've got different systems. We've got neurological system, cardiovascular system, respiratory system. We've got all these systems in our body that do different things, endocrine system, and it goes on. Just look at an A&P book. I still have mine from 2003. So if you look at those, look at how that translates into our world, right? So if I'm looking at, say, the digestive system, which essentially creates energy and distributes it and all that stuff, and we take in and we output, and all of this stuff is very much like banking. That's bringing in, it's because money is energy, and you're bringing it in and you're giving it out and all of that stuff. So if all those systems have messed up stitches in them that have to get unraveled, you're really taking an inventory of where it got messed up. The unraveling is to see, where did that stitch get screwed up? That looks like violence. It looks like insanity. Why are you pulling all of this? You worked so hard. Why, we were doing just fine. And it's just like a toddler goes in and destroys everything. And that's really where we're at, is that the toddler has gone in and had access to all the systems and is unraveling all the yarn to find out where it went wrong. And it's just so interesting because as this is happening, right before I went to Shasta, the night before we left, we went to go see Hamilton. My daughter and I, it was touring through Boise, and we have seen it before. Like when she was, I don't know, in seventh grade, I took her to Seattle to go see it. And for those of you who have listened to that musical, it's really the founding fathers of what the intentions were around what was created in the country to be um, supporting of sovereignty. That was a really big thing, is sovereignty, right? And that's just not where we're at. And there are certain things that just can't hold anymore. You can stuff a bunch of stuff into a bag, eventually the stitches are going to burst. And we have gotten so deep in systems that are distorted that whatever it takes to fix it is going to be very upsetting. It's going to be very disruptive. It's going to be very overwhelming. and things it's going to feel like the sky is falling, basically. And cheers definitely feels like that. But this is what Osho also showed me, and this is really important to note. When I was I've mentioned this before in some of my videos that involve like my Laws of the Universe course and my Kundalini course. I talk about we go through all of these different resurrections and deaths and rebirths in our life. And my Saturn return, which I didn't even know that was a thing, but now I know it is, and I can like map it out. My Saturn return involved three near-death experiences in 1 year. Two of those were hospitalizations of sepsis, and one was hemorrhage. I had a lot of medical issues that year. It was the year my daughter was born. But the sepsis, it's an attack on all your systems, right? And so Osho is showing me the destroyer is neutral. But what it did was it was an upheaval of every system in my body. And it did not only like cause me to nearly die and see the white light and like come back, but it also restructured where I went from then on. If I hadn't had those experiences, I wouldn't have become a social worker. I wouldn't have gone into counseling on the route I did. I wouldn't have understood and had compassion for people going through medical issues, pain, insecurity. I wouldn't have felt the fear and uncertainty of being a single mom on Medicaid. I wouldn't have had the empathy that I needed to access in order to help people the way I have and do. And so this thing that came in to destroy me, to kill me, to liquefy my insides, acted as a catalyst in the long term to create something that was very healing and beautiful. Did that infection know that's what it was going to do? When it came in, did it have the intention of, I'm going to disrupt this girl's life and mess up everything, and then she's going to bring good into the world? No, of course it didn't. It was neutral. Came in and it just wanted to like multiply, mess everything up. So we have to understand that the catalyst doesn't have to be aware of what it is catalyzing. This was really important because right now, what we're experiencing and witnessing is a dismantling. It is a ripping apart of the stitches to restitch and repattern with more order with the original or upgraded pattern in mind. But it's not through the lens of love necessarily. It's not through the lens of anything other than I'm going to be the biggest and the best and the new age. It's the golden age of America. Like, that's all ego, obviously. It's all about this hyper masculinity, patriarchy, destroying. There is a lot of like tech intent. There's a lot of like loose understanding of what's being created, but for the most part, it is destruction and it looks very disrupting and upsetting, and a lot of people are going into fear. And most people are just in shock with information overload. It feels a lot like during COVID, where you're getting a new tragedy every 5 seconds, and you're like, what the hell? I'm just gonna sit here and try to exist in my own little world. But keep the emotion out of it and understand that this is a catalyst for mass change. You don't have to like any aspect of what is happening. And God knows. The only the only thing that I am feeling genuinely excited about is that I'm not waiting for the shoe to drop anymore. I'm like, okay, fine. Yes. Okay, now I know things are falling apart. I can see it's falling apart every day I wake up and I'm like, what day am I in? How long was January? It was like 5 years long. So we're dealing with like everything is rapid, rapid, rapid. And that's the other thing that I was getting from Osho was the The word he used was swift, but then, that's kind of just like tainted with Taylor Swift now. So I was like, yeah, it's swift. Every day is a new universe we're waking up to. Actually, every blink of our eyes, we're opening ourselves up to a new reality. And so I saw that we are going into such a swift amount of change. And I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. We have to detach from our ideas of what we want, where we're going, and it's all related to an old matrix that's being destroyed. So I don't know about you, and I'm hearing I get to actually publish my book soon. I'm so excited about it because I'm just sitting on it for all this time, and it's been no, 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 and I'm hearing, get ready. I got chills. Because the book, in essence, when I wrote it, it was before I was awakened, but it is all coded because I was channeling it. And it is about the matrix and how we have been coded to look at things and so aggressively from every angle in terms of this is success, this is not, this is of value, this is not. So I remember when I was coming into my adulthood and I was, I think I was a barista making maybe $5, 5.50 an hour, maybe. My rent was 375 and in a really cool neighborhood. And yeah, sewage came up in my bathtub every time I flushed the toilet, but like it was fine. It was building character. I just spent a lot of money on bleaching my bathtub. And I had friends and it was chill. And then there's this shift that happened in the early 20s when you get this pressure from everywhere. If you're not in school or in a career making money or contributing in some mass way, you're a failure and you get kind of like societally shamed for not being in a certain cookie cutter. And that was really devastating for me. And because I wanted to create and I was writing and I was feeling so many emotions and loving music and enjoying my friends and writing poetry and even painting and just really enjoying aspects of discovering myself when I was really derailed by needing to be an adult. And this is what being an adult looks like. And it just so quickly unraveled into a machine of like you work to go to school to get a degree to then work 9 to 5 to then pay your taxes, buy a house, get a vacation, get a car, have children that have to also be successful. What are they going to be when they grow up? How can you prepare them for that? And they need to be in this program and that program and this and so they're like going to school for 8 hours a day, and after school they're going to two activities, doing their homework, and they're grinding harder than a lot of adults, for God's sake, and they're growing. And that's an exhaustive system so much you don't even have time to realize what you're losing in that process of that machine, of that matrix. And it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. But we have to, right now, I got that we have to release ourselves from our connection to what that narrative is of safety or not safety, because we've been really programmed to be fearful and to be afraid and to go into fear very quickly. Because a lot of people, at least in America, are at least one paycheck away from bankruptcy. And a lot of people are in debt, and a lot of people are afraid of just sustaining life and having their basic needs met, but long term, because they're always thinking about insurance or health insurance and getting sick and what if, what if, what if, which keeps you in fear. And so I'm hearing a lot of we have to release our idea of what a life looks like. We have to release our idea of what safety is. I'm pausing for effect. We have to release our idea of what being a success is. And that's one of the biggest, man. Our worthiness, our sense of self-worthiness is so attached to our ability to represent ourselves with some outer concept of worth. Like you meet someone and they're like, "What do you do for a living?" Well, I'm Audrey. It used to be I'd be like, "Well, I'm a counselor, so meh, meh, meh." I don't care. I don't care. Yeah, I have an education, but everything that I learned was skewed through a lens that was distorted. So I'm going back and I'm restitching everything and relearning history and relearning that, a lot of mental illness is spiritual illness. A lot of it is energetic illness. I'm going back and I'm relearning. I'm not an authority more than anybody else because of an education. No, it just means I spent more time waiting to live. And so I just release yourself from what your title is, if you can, because I want you to know you are worthy, you are divine. There is nothing you have to prove to any other human being, entity, or system that shows that you are worthy to take up space. Don't apologize for taking up space. You have a right to be, and you have a right to your sovereignty. You have a right to happiness just because you exist here, not because you can prove it with how much money you have, or what your credit score is, or your education, or how many years experience you have doing anything. You're just a person, and that's enough. And so I keep hearing releasing our attachment to what makes you valuable and what you're wishing for your future and your progression towards said future really has to go into a state of fluidity and release. And I realize not everybody is there yet, because that concept alone is like, really? Oh God, but I worked so hard, and was it all for nothing? Absolutely not, because think of all the people you touched in your trails of those things that you learned, for all the things that I did in those years of my grinding and toiling. I also, I sat with dying people in hospice and told them that they were lovable. I made them homemade jam. I brought them Thanksgiving meals when they didn't have any family. I let people know they were of value. I stopped lots of people from killing themselves. I have made a difference while I was grinding. I don't think it's for naught. And I know it wasn't for naught for you. So don't go into that either of like, well, what was it all for? Did I waste all my... Don't do that. Nothing's a waste of time. The fact that you're watching this means that you came here with a mission. This wouldn't even interest you if you weren't one of the people that came here with a mission. So you may be not be where you can detach from it yet, because I realize that I was put in this position right now at this time, detached as I am, to be able to share it with you, to help you detach at whatever pace is right for you. And if you don't, that's also fine, because you have sovereignty. Cheers. That's what we're talking about. So next up, is, and this one was really interesting. I think this is the last one. Yeah, this is the last one. Before I do a quick channel. The last one is around ascension codes, because and it makes sense to me, we are going through another mass wave that's awakening right now, that's coming into their power and their knowledge, and they're going, they're taking the pill, the red pill, and they're like, what the hell is going on? And it's because of the dismantling and the chaos and the whatever. They're coming into this awareness. And it's also like astrologically timed to be this, and it's beautiful. But for those of us who've been on the journey a lot longer, like I said, we've been doing the work. We've been grid working, we've been creating community, we've been healing ourselves and our family lineage. We've been doing all this stuff. We're teaching people how to like work through their ego selves and their the seven laws of the universe, and that's what I've been doing anyway. We've been grinding in that regard of our service. We've been doing all the work. And it's felt like a lot of heavy lifting for not that many people, because especially because we've been deemed as the super weirdos, and they're kind of crazy and we don't know what to do with them, and we're so used to that now we don't even care. But there's a whole new group that's going, right now, which is cool. Um, but we are needing to do a couple of things. First of all, the ascension codes are increasing from the sun because the solar maximum is upon us. And I tell you, this week has been something for my body because of all of the flares. Sometimes I'm like, I'm beyond it. And then I'm like, I was on the couch exhausted all yesterday, not sick, physically drained, as though I had just run a marathon. I had not run a marathon. Spoiler, I've never run a marathon and have no plans to. But I was so exhausted. I could not get off the couch, and my body felt like it was vibrating. And every time I close my eyes, I'm seeing everything, and I'm like, what the hell is happening? And that's, you know, ascension. And we're going through, and I kept getting there was an octave shift. And so this is really cool. And this comes to my very bad drawing that maybe I should just describe instead. This was explained a little bit a while ago through different imagery and different wording by a woman that I follow um, on YouTube, and I can't remember her name, but she channels the Seraphim and the Arcturians as well, and so we vibe similarly because she gets similar information. I really wish I could give you her name right now, but she's got an intro song called "Can You Feel the Light?" Maybe that helps. I don't know. She's got really big eyes. She's beautiful. But she was talking in terms of bridges and stuff like that. Well, what I'm seeing is that so it's kind of like a relay race. All right. If you remember PE in elementary school, there's like a group of people and there's one person who has a baton and they're running around the track and then they give the baton to the next person and then they have to run around the track. And so everybody's going in this kind of taking your turns kind of thing, and it's a team. And so the winning team is the one that finishes with the last wave last. So I saw that we were in this relay race, and I have been going around that track with my baton, and it's been laborious. Like, even though you're part of the team, if you're running around the track, you're extending yourself, extend. You're working hard. And then when you hand it off, you can recover for a second. So what I saw was that because all of us are bumping up in octaves right now, my wave, who's been working so hard and just like barely holding on this whole time, doing mass growth and really breaking down our egos to nothing and just really being blessed with wonderful connections and all this other stuff that's good. We're very tired, but this new awakening is bumping us all up. And so I guess I'll show you this a little bit. We've got we've got down here is the underworld, right? And these are the 3D people. And some of those are coming up to the 5D now. They're coming up to the 5D. They're basically living on this bridge. And I've been up here. And so as they come up, I can move farther to 7D, which is where I kind of was moving up that direction in Shasta in August. I remember going into 7D very clearly with my friend Alex. But we've been kind of like still dipping down into the underworld to try to help people down here. We can't do that anymore. The people that are moving up from that lower octave, they've been in the underworld and they're moving up and they're on that bridge now. They are now the bridge workers. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not working with the people who aren't awake yet. I'm only working with the people that are awake that are headed up farther. So this is kind of like fishing. Like they're still fishing. I'm done fishing. I'm not going to fish anymore, but I am going to teach the fishermen. And so it's moving up like stacking blocks, but it's a relay race. And so that is what is happening right now. Now, what's interesting about it that I found really helpful is that we're going to be able to rest soon a little bit. We're going to, like, my wave is going to be able to rest a little bit and sit back and just not do the grinding. And I feel like we're in the midst of that right now. That transition, we're still doing some of the work, but we're going to be able to rest. I'm like, how are we going to be able to rest? I don't understand. Like, but while the matrix is still here and it's being unraveling, how are we going to be able to rest? And what I got was, because we've been over this past several years and beyond, we've been slowly dismantling our connection to the matrix. And he showed me a whole slideshow of how I've done that, in terms of, it started like when I left my private practice in 2017, but it started even before that. Or I didn't leave my private practice, when I left my health system job and went to private practice. And then in private practice, I was still dealing with systems of insurance companies and like all of that stuff that's really junky, that you think you're free but you're not. I was still doing that, and I was still like taking medications, and I was still like eating fast food on occasion. So it has like accelerated to where I've detached from every system that's been distorted as much as I can. Like, I don't go to grocery stores anymore. Unless they're like organic co-ops or I get food delivered from fresh farms. I make my own medicine with herbs. I don't use anything on my body that isn't, like, almost everything I use on my body I've made myself. So I know where it's come from. Nothing in my yard is sprayed. I am really so detached from the matrix, and this has happened over a period of years. It's not easy to do. You can't do it overnight. It's a lot. And so because the the programming is so insidious and so deep, it is impossible to rest while you are still connected to the mentality of your only worth is connected to the grind and to prove to other people your worth. And you can only release yourself from that when you have slowly detached yourself from all those different systems that are distorted. And that's happening in waves. And so, because I'm on this part of the other ladder, and look at you, Dressel, like maybe I'll put it in here, the picture of the ascension map for people like the Odin lineage of the Vikings. There's a tree, and you're going up the tree in different levels. And or you could put it like, the tree of life, and you're going up from the Malkut all the way up to the Keter. And and we're like, I'm maybe probably here, and other people are doing their other routes. They're going the long way. But the more detached I am from the Malkut, from that survival, the more I'm able to be in touch with this upper level. And that's when you can rest, when you don't feel worthless by just breathing air. Like, I always go back to a squirrel's taking a nap on a branch and it doesn't feel guilty about it. Why are we as humans feeling like we need to be productive when we're sick? Like, that's insane. Yeah, we do. So that's how that's going to work. I hope that that makes sense. So we're going up in octaves. If you don't understand what I'm talking about by we're going up in octaves, a really great resource is Walter Russell's Universal One book. And I'll put in here a picture of my favorite picture of his, of the elemental chart, where he talks about it. It really goes in accordance to octaves that go up. It looks like a spine, like the Kundalini, but it's with the elements of the world we live in, and it's by density. So the more dense elements are at the bottom, like by our root chakra, and it goes up to this gamma wave at top. If you want to know more about how that works, my Laws of the Universe class goes over a lot of this stuff. It goes through the chakra systems, it goes through the laws of the universe, like law of correspondence, the law of polarity, the law of rhythm, et cetera, et cetera. And it really goes deeply into those concepts. It's really freaking awesome. It's kind of been my whole mission has been to get out the Hermetic principles. But another really good resource I wanted to share is a resource that's really helped me on my ascension journey is I don't know if you can see this. Zanetta Raw. She's come out with like 8 books that she channels from the Seraphim, and this Ascension Symptom Manual has some really valuable stuff in it to let you kind of know where you're at on your path. And I thought, oh, it's old hat. I know where I'm at. I pulled this out again this week. I had my Kundalini in 2021. I pulled this out this week because she came out with another book. She doesn't come out with them frequently. The Pearl Codes. Oh my God, it's so physically activating, even if you don't know what it means when you're reading it, because it's a lot about the angelics and how they were created. And I don't even know how to pronounce the names of the angelics. And as I'm reading it, my body is like vibrating and what's going on? And I'm on the couch, and then there's the plasma and all this stuff. And so I pulled this out and I'm like, okay, I thought I was like beyond some of this, but no, I'm just getting started, baby. So I would recommend this because it goes into actually like the physiology. It shows maps of your body down to your teeth and what you're feeling with everything. So I would recommend her stuff too. She is not on social media. She is on YouTube, and she puts out videos not frequently, but when she does, they are very meaningful. So I will put a link to her stuff in this podcast, and I recommend checking her out. But so we're all on this track together. Oh my gosh, so much on this track together. I know that this is a mishmashy podcast, but oh, there is one more thing. Receiving codes from the sun during this solar maximum is key. And it's twofold, though. I haven't heard this from anyone else, but experienced some of this on medicine was a lot of people will like stargaze, not stargaze, sun gaze, and they'll do so by like doing half mass with their eyes and looking at it like through, so you don't damage your eyes or anything. And in ancient civilizations, this was a practice of gazing at the sun, especially during sunrise and sunset. Of course, most of us, there's so many chemtrails in the sky, we never get to see the sun. I get to see it like every 4 or 5 days. I'm like, ooh, it's a sun. But now I'm making a real effort to, even if I close my eyes and direct it at the sun, I will see codes in my third eye while I'm receiving it. But if you can't do that, also receiving it through your back, I've gotten is really working to upgrade your cerebral spinal fluid, which is a very sacred fluid in your body. And it is communicating the new codes, just receiving the heat. This is why they used to worship the sun gods in so many civilizations, was because it offered gifts of codes, abundance, knowledge. It's helping create DNA upgrades, essentially, is what it is doing. So, sun. I remember there's a song by U2, Staring at the Sun, and it was, gosh, it was from forever ago. Was it from the pop album or something around that? It was like, it's all about staring at the sun. It came on my mix this morning while I was showering on Spotify. I was like, that's interesting. Bono, thanks for that. So I'm going to, with that, those little updates, those themes that we're dealing with as we're going through the dismantling, I'm going to do a quick channel with Osho. And, this skull has been through a lot. It has been to Shasta. Uh, so many, all the times. It's gone all 4 times to Shasta with me. To use Shasta. My voice is starting to crack. I have not talked this much this week. I've been on the couch. To ask Osho. Osho, what do you have for the collective right now that will assist in this period of uncertainty and swift acceleration. He's going straight to ascension symptoms right now. He's showing me inside of a human body and that there's show me bare feet on the ground. That's funny because it's so cold right now. It's snowing right now. There's snow on the ground. He's saying that there is a connected circuit that will interesting, come together through the soles of the feet. The feet hold a chakra system that is also receptive, much like the crown chakra that's on the top of the head. The feet also hold a crown chakra, and in that, it's in the center of the foot, the sole of the foot is able to receive and give. And so going barefoot on the ground is able to receive codes from Gaia's heart, the crystal of her heart. She is emitting codes with every beat of her heart and the vibration that is coming from her heart, which is in direct communication with the solar rays and the sun codes. And you want to connect yourself to this circuit. And so to assist yourself in your own upgrades, to be able to go barefoot on the soil, especially if you're near, like I'm hearing mycelium is everywhere, but if you're near a tree and you can go barefoot by the tree, the roots actually amplify and assist in that transmutation process of being able to also receive the codes from the central heart of Gaia. It's delivered through a frequency that is being tonally communicated through the mycelium in the earth. And that is communicated then with the tree roots and beyond. So as you, in fact, if you were to sit at the base of a tree with your feet bare on the ground, the transmutation process would be greater assistance as your spine is next to the trunk of the tree. It will assist in transmuting any of the density that is creating the circuit clogging that makes you feel like you are not a complete circuit and that something's stuck. It can be illness, it could be pain, it could be a stiffness. The tree will transmute that for you. So you can receive the codes from the crown chakra of the soles of your feet on the ground, and the tree will transmute what is needing transmuted. And at the same time, you connect then your crown chakra with the solar codes. This is done best during solar activity, where you're able to see the sun. The sun is present for you and shining onto the tree. It is actually of assistance in the northern hemisphere that it is wintertime because these codes can create an ignition within one's body that feels very hot, especially in the spine. And it's a cooling effect. So it's a really perfectly timed activation. And there's also like an internal consent to receive those codes and not to feel fear around receiving them, knowing that they are for your greatest good and for your ascension process. And so as you I'm hearing click yourself into the circuit, kind of like you're a puzzle piece completing the puzzle, um, with your feet, crown chakras, and your crown chakra on your head connected from the solar codes, the masculine to the feminine of Gaia's heart. You then become part of the process and the any kind of resistance is I'm just seeing it melt away. And then the resistance is what causes discomfort. The resistance is what causes fear. The resistance is what causes uncertainty. So when you go into the flow of nature within that circuit and that connection, you are no longer able to connect yourself to the matrix of fear. That is new information for me, folks. Wow, I need to do that, but right now there's snow on the ground, so I'm gonna wait. I did do a lot of laying in the grass or on the snow actually when I was in Shasta, so it can be done, folks. I do want to say before I wrap that I am opening up my one-on-one sessions. I took time off for grief. Those sessions are open now. They are available to schedule to channel for you. I also have an offering that I am going to do its own podcast on, but it's on a Kundalini activation. I would invite you to check that out on my website to see if that's something you're interested in. There are a lot of resources available for you within that. So it's not just a one-on-one session with me. It's so many other things before that that's pretty t intense and kind of the gift that keeps giving. And then I have my Laws of the Universe course if you are interested in learning more about how to navigate through the matrix with those ancient laws of the universe from the Emerald Tablets, from the Corpus Hermeticum, the seven laws that center around everything around us, so you can kind of break the code in your world around you and do that kind of internal healing. It is also extremely robust, and you can find everything about that on my website as well. Please like, share this, subscribe, get it out. I know I'm personally excited to go into a little rest and relaxation from all the grinding. But until I'm told to do that, I will be doing the grind for humanity and Gaia happily. And I just want to get as much love out into the world as humanly possible. And I will see you next time. Bye bye.